right here on July the 14th, 2014, in work at a pizza place. The pizzeria seems to be undergoing yet another peaceful day of making and delivering food. Yet the users of this server have no idea that they are about to be one of the first of many nefarious attacks by one of Roblox's most notorious exploiters. His name was c00lkidd. Now, there are plenty of videos talking about who exactly c00lkidd is and how the exploits he used from 2014 to 2016 worked. So what I want to focus on isn't the what he did, but rather the how. How had this tiny red man not only continued to remain somewhat prevalent even a decade after his last breath, but continues to thrive day by day, to this day, as an ever-growing bigger icon, all the way from Before the video begins, as usual, if you enjoyed this video at any point, subscribe. It helps the channel a ton, and it's free. Now, while I did say that I wouldn't focus on what c00lkidd did for the most part, there will inevitably be some individuals who aren't familiar with him or some of the more finer details, so here's a quick rundown. This is c00lkidd. He's an alternate account created by 007 and 7, and from 2014 to 2016, c00lkidd would run around and exploit in various games, most notably Work at a Pizza Place, Natural Disaster Survival, and Top Roblox Runway Model. By replacing the game assets with his avatar using his GUI, the cool GUI, along with his iconic song, he would ask users to join his group and join his antics. And by doing this enough times, he would gain a tiny bit of notoriety on the corner of the internet through the Roblox community. The motive? Perhaps for fun, wanting to flaunt an alleged IQ of 160, maybe a grudge as a former Roblox employee after being fired. Who knows? Now, in preparation for this video, I actually reached out to a couple of exploiters. Security testers! I reached out to security testers, people that exploit in games to help developers address vulnerabilities in their games. Now, there was some disagreement on whether c00lkidd used server-side or client-side exploits, and I know some of you are wondering his exploits affected the game's assets, not his own avatar or himself. How could they possibly be client-side exploits as those usually affect the avatar themselves? Well, it's simple. If the games he attacked back then didn't have the filtering enabled property on, since replication filtering wasn't a thing back then, c00lkidd's exploits would appear on every client in the game regardless of what kind of exploit it was and replicate to the server for all users to see. Now, if filtering enabled was on, then it probably wouldn't have worked and he would have to use a different method. Essentially, one side of the argument is that he used client-sided exploits in games that have filtering enabled off to replicate them on everyone else's clients, making it seem like they were server-side. Which, if that's true, is quite smart. Now, what was agreed on by all the security testers was that with Roblox's acquisition of the Bifront anti-cheat in 2022, the original c00lkidd UI simply cannot compete today and is essentially obsolete. Now, if you're a bit confused on what any of these terms mean, I made a video talking about exploiting, or the less accurate term hacking, in Roblox that goes into a little more detail, which you might be interested in checking out. Anyways, c00lkidd and his group were eventually banned, and after the main group was banned, the main Team c00lkidd group would branch off into separate groups that exist to this day. And one of the owners doesn't seem to be the biggest fan of exploiting now. After c00lkidd's ban, Roblox had essentially won. c00lkidd would be something people might reminisce about, but not really care for anymore. At least, that should have been the case. Now, running around and exploiting in games doesn't quite explain why c00lkidd is so popular today. After all, he wasn't the only one exploiting back then. And a few years after the ban, one of the main c00lkidd branch groups would have a modest 2,500 members in 2021. Yet, just 1 year later, that number would jump to 7,500 in 2022, a 5,000 member increase. 2 years later, and that number would become 10,000, a 2,500 member jump, but in twice the amount of time than before. Clearly, there was something that occurred in this time period that caused such a large increase of interest in c00lkidd in such a short amount of time. But what could it have been? Oh, that's what it was. See, the game Meep City had been hacked in February of 2022 by Tubers93. Tubers had already been a bit notorious for similar incidents in the past, but having it happen to one of the biggest Roblox games inevitably made the people interested in exploiting and the topic of famous exploiters. And if we look at the most related search term to c00lkidd at the time, according to Google Trends, which tracks all Google searches, it was Tubers93. Thanks to his stunt, users grew curious about exploiters in general and found out about the notorious c00lkidd. And this wasn't the first time either. This second spike here in February of 2017 was around the height of the John Doe rumors and videos, which also caused a spike in interest in exploiters in general at that time. And as a consequence, more searches for c00lkidd. Well now, I want to make one thing clear before we continue. Tubers93 and his group or exploiters in general are not the sanest people. I mean, some of the things they did I could not show on YouTube, and every time I prepare to make a video on exploiting, the security testers I talk to, there's about 12 of them, they always tell me to not get involved with the exploiting community. Quote, just a bunch of teenagers that make edgy jokes and are permanently, that thing. But that didn't really bother me in researching the topic because, you know, that's just Instagram reels. Even when I joined one of the Cool Kid branch group Discord servers, which is essentially just a fan club at this point, well, whoa, I cannot show that. What? Anyways, what I'm trying to say is while it's fun to talk about exploiters and exploiting, I don't actually encourage you to or endorse actually exploiting or joining communities related to it. You're putting your account at risk. Can you put that thing away now? Thank you. Anyways, you remember these 2 spikes in Google searches for Cool Kid earlier, the John Doe and Tubers93 thing? Well, Cool Kid had once again gotten a significant increase of members in early 2025, an increase of 5,000 members in fact, but this time in just 8 months. Also, here's what the 2 spikes in 2022 for Tubers93 and 2017 for John Doe for Google searches look like now that we include present day for searches for Cool Kid in the timeline. That's kind of weird. What the heck is that spike? Forsaken is a pretty popular game right now. It's essentially Dead by Daylight, but with some classic Roblox characters and myths. Cool Kid being one of them. Now, I know some people are upset by how, I guess, mainstream Cool Kid has become because of this game, and Forsaken has definitely pushed Cool Kid to the edge of being an icon now. But it isn't as if Cool Kid wasn't already well known before. Like I said, the branch group already had 10,000 members before Forsaken was released. It's just gotten 5,000 more now in 8 months due to its release. Now, what is undeniable is that the game has pushed Cool Kid to the edge of being an icon. Now, what have I meant by an icon this whole video? What I mean by icon is that if you were talking about Cool Kid with a friend, it wouldn't be too surprising now to have a kid come up and say, oh, you mean that guy from Forsaken? And the kid has no idea what Cool Kid actually did from 2014 to 2016. Essentially, he's become so popular to the point that there's a number of people who don't even know the basic gist of what he did. I guess a similar analogy would be talking about Hatsune Miku, and then the same guy from before goes, oh, that anime girl from Fortnite? Man, there are really people that look at this and just know her as the Fortnite girl now. But despite how it sounds, it's not as if becoming an icon in my words is a bad thing. Nothing wrong with becoming more popular, but now that Cool Kid has somewhat become an icon, I just want one point from this video to be made clear. No, he wasn't a Roblox employee. No, he wasn't a hacking genius with an IQ of 160, nor did he have a secret grudge on Roblox CEO David Baszucki. Cool Kid was probably just some young guy looking to cause some havoc and make some friends along the way. But that's kind of boring. And of course, there's nothing wrong with wishing for one of these alternatives. After all, it's a lot more fun that way. One thing I can say with confidence though is that Cool Kid's wish of spreading his team across the site as an icon of Roblox chaos has finally been achieved. So, rest easy, old friend, with your last bite.
Pizza!